fishing. Crimpy's Fishing Show.
Happy Saturday morning, welcome along to Newstalk ZB, and it is that time once again of the week to catch up with Fishing with Crimpy. Here's your host, Mr. Daryl Crimp.
Very good morning, Regan.
How are you doing today,
I'm in
sir?
shock.
You're in shock?
I am in shock. It rained last week.
Oh, I know.
I know we need it.
Yeah.
I do know. I understand that. But I do like the sunshine.
Do you?
Yeah, don't you?
No, I'm a coaster.
Oh, you're
see.
kidding me.
Yeah, I love it. It's the only time I can move through puddles with the grace and elegance of a beautiful duck with my webbed toes.
Yeah, right. You'd be the kind of kid that would go out there and wait for somebody to pass, and then you'd leap into a puddle and splash them.
Oh, yeah.
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 Did you enjoy playing in the rain as a kid?
Yes, on Henley Street there in Westport. It was quite bad flooding, and it used to go right across the road over to the tennis courts there, and I was always out there playing in the puddles. Not by choice. I think Mum just said, get him outside before the visitors see him.
We did too on the farm. I loved it when it flooded because I remember the paddocks flooding, and we'd get out there and when the water came through, we'd be out there with our canoes and kayaks and logs and things like that. I did get into trouble in a flood once.
Did you?
Yeah, in Christchurch.
Yeah.
When Christchurch flooded, and being a bit of a youth at Teachers College, I got excited, got in the car and roared up and down the main street so my mate could photograph me until this guy came out of his house because the tidal waves caused by my car were going right through his lounge and out the back of his kitchen. And he came out and snotted me. I was quite prepared to talk about it, but no, straight through the window, boof.
Oh, that is brilliant.
So I reversed up the street so the waves would go the other way.
I always, and I think it's passed down through my family, but I've always said that after a flood during a flood is the best whitebaiting time.
Really?
Yeah. I've always found that if blind trawling during flood, whitebait are plenty.
Mm-hmm. So you do have some genetic handicaps there.
Oh, look at me.
Well, speaking of fishing, what is happening around the traps at the moment?
Yeah, well, Waimak, the Waimak is fizzing at the moment. I don't know if you've been on our Facebook page, the Fishing Paper Facebook page. Wayne Henwood is an amazing shot of him. He took in a 25-pound salmon off the Waimak. So there's plenty of action there, but that's a beaut fish.
I see Jeff Holden's been out and about in his kayak again this week. A lot of people kayaking, especially since we've had the excitement of the 30-pound snapper and then again the 25-pound snapper taken off the one kayak in a month. Obviously, it gives you a little bit of stealth getting out there. Now, Jeff's out there and about all the time and regularly comes back with quite a catch, so there must be something in the fact that kayaking gives you an advantage. This week he's caught snapper off Cable Bay, and also I've noted too plenty of big kahawai around, not just in Tasman Bay and the Marlborough Sounds, also down off the coast, Kaikoura and that. So there's plenty of action if you want to get out there fishing.
Jeff was also telling me about a 55-centimetre gurnard he caught.
That's a good size
gurnard.
Is
that a reasonable, like at the larger end?
That's a mature gurnard. I mean, years ago, they used to get hoovered up quite a bit with a commercial catch, so the gurnard we caught around the top of the south tended to be quite small. Now you consistently get them up around that, 45 to 55 centimetre. 50 plus centimetre gurnards is certainly a big one.
That's a decent fish.
Beautiful eating too.
Are they? I've never eaten them.
Have you? Seriously?
No, I've never had a gurnard. In fact, one of the only times I went out fishing previous to starting at the Fishing Paper, we actually caught a whole bunch of them, and I thought it was a red cod, so I threw it back.
You kidding me?
No.
Well, there's a book that has just come out that I've actually ordered for you, Regan.
Oh, yeah?
It's Coastal Fishes of New Zealand. Now, it's published by Craig Potton Publishing. It's been around for a number of years, but it's been revised, revamped, updated with more species in it. So watch out for that when it comes on the bookshelves, because it's a handy guide to have, and no doubt you'll be poring over the pages.
Well, hopefully there's lots of pictures if you're getting it for me.
Plenty of pictures.
We need to look at the tides in just a tick or two, but Mr. Crimp, I want to pick your experience and knowledge of fishing, the brain matter, that is, because it's winter. The snapper move around winter time, don't they? I've heard a lot of talk about this.
Snapper move on a daily basis. If they don't, they drown.
Right.
That's why
I see this conversation's going to
That's why they
swimming
have fins. But we will have an update on what the snapper are doing very, very shortly. And don't forget, the tides are next. If you want to know what's happening on the water this weekend, stay tuned. We'll have more of that in just a moment.
This is Fishing with Crimpy. I'm Regan, and that over there is Mr. Daryl Crimp.
I got my hand up.
He's got his hand up. Excellent. So if you're heading out onto the water this weekend, we need to know what's happening with the tides.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet?
No, my daughter's doing her homework, and her homework involved a family tree.
Oh, yep.
had to put together a family. So it's been quite interesting finding out that we have got a family tree.
Yeah.
And on Annette's side, it's Italian. Have you ever wondered why Italian fathers and grandfathers pass their handguns down through the family? They do.
Do they?
Yeah, an old Italian man was dying, and he calls his grandson to his bedside, and he says, Guido, I want you to listen to me. I want you to take my chrome-plated 38 revolver so you will always remember me. So the kid looks at him and says, but Grandpa, I really don't like guns. How about you leave me your Rolex watch instead? Guido, you listen to me, boy. Someday you're going to be running a business. You're going to have a beautiful wife, lots of money, a bigger home, and maybe a couple of bambinos. Someday you're going to come home and maybe find the wife in bed with another man. So what are you going to do then? Point it to your watch and say, time's up? Well, it's time for the tides. Nelson high tide today, 4 p.m. That's a 3.1 metre tide. Havelock, your high tide is at 5 to 5, 2.3 metres. They're small ones today. Crisell's high tide around 5 to 5 again. Stevens, and that's a 3.3. Stevens, your high tide is 24 to 5, 2.1 metres up there. Westport, it always changes down the coast. 20 past 6 p.m, 20 past 6 p.m. again for Greymouth, and they're a 2.5 and a 2.7 tide. So the small ones this weekend.
Excellent stuff. All right, well, we are heading into the colder period. So I wanted to have a wee chat to you about the snapper, what actually happens to them during winter, Crimpy, because a lot of people keep saying to me that they move out deeper and all this sort of...
Yeah, most fisheries operate on a cyclical or a seasonable change. The snapper, as we know, they come in over summer, and that's why people get excited. They go close to shore, catch plenty of snapper. There's a bit of a myth that, well, it's not a myth, they do move off in winter, but they stay around a lot longer than what people believe. And I think the reason that people stopped fishing earlier with them was because once the snapper fishery collapsed in the top of the South Island with the commercial fishing back in the mid-70s, there were a lot less snapper around, so the fluctuations were quite noticeable. They head into deeper water in winter. They basically follow the food.
Right.
So when all the bait fish and everything move off from the coastal shallow water, they go deep and the snapper follow them. Prior to going deep, of course, they need to stack on conditions so they survive the winter, and that's why people are catching a lot at the moment, because right up into autumn and late autumn, they're busy feeding, stacking on conditions. So at the moment, they are moving. They're drifting back to deep water, but there's still plenty of snap around the shallow margins to target.
So, in theory, would that mean that if I got on my boat and went out, 30, 40 metres, I could still target snapper?
At the moment, as Jeff Holden has experienced this week, there's still good penny snappers around off Cable Bay. You'll still be getting in the Marlborough Sounds. But they're also moving up towards the top of D'Urville Island already. So it's not like they go en masse in one great big march.
Yep.
They drift out. So now's the time to be thinking about making the most of your stray lining at the moment while they're still in that sort of 20, 30 metre mark. But we will be looking at changing tactics very shortly, because one thing that happens when they go into the winter mode is that their metabolism changes as well. So while they're feeding up frantically at the moment, taking big baits, putting on condition, once they get into that deeper water, which is cold but the temperature's consistent, they tend to slow down their metabolism so they don't have to feed as much because they're not swimming as much, so therefore they eat less and they conserve energy. So it's a totally different style of fishing, if you like.
So we need to look at changing our style of fishing. Gee, I wish I could speed my metabolism up. That'd be quite good.
Have you tried moving?
No.
There you go.
You're a doctor as well.
Well, it could help. But certainly at the moment I'd be recommending that people get out now. There's sometimes the fish will stay around. There are big fish that will stay around over winter. They tend to be hard to catch simply because they're on their own, they're moving around, they're moochers, and because when it's cold and that sort of thing, who wants to get out standing on the...
So, but why do the kingfish come in and during winter and snapper leave?
No, the kingfish come in here in summer.
I thought they came in. I thought it was a winter fishery.
Out at D'Urville it is.
Oh, right.
Shall I draw you a picture?
I think we should.
I think we need to pursue this further.
Get a pen.
Because there are some lessons you need learning. More of those in a moment.
Fishing with Crimpy on Newstalk ZB. Happy Saturday morning to you. I'm Regan. This is Mr. Darryl Crimp.
And this is Play School.
Yes. Do not call me Humpty.
No, on a more serious note, though, our condolences and our thoughts go with the families of the tragedy off Greymouth this week with the boat Lady Anna overturned on the bar. Now, a lot of people have been talking about it on Facebook and a lot of traffic going around about it. I would just like to take my hat off to the commercial sector. Now, these guys, you see it on YouTube, you see them coming in and it looks horrendous and that sort of thing. They do not attempt these bar crossings lightly, and there is always a risk with that kind of commercial fishing and the fact that they have to come in and over the bar, and nobody likes an outcome like the outcome that we had this week, the tragedy what that was, the Lady Anna. So from all of us here, just let you know that we're thinking of you. And it's a sobering thought too, because while you're not a commercial fisherman, if you're a recreationalist on the water, it just does show clearly that you need to be vigilant and aware that the sea can bite back, so take care out there on the water.
Absolutely. Now, we were talking before the break about winter fishing and the snapper on the move. My knowledge, obviously, is a little bit hazy on this, Crimpy.
You're doing well. Well. The kingfish thing we need to work on.
Yeah. Well, I always thought that was a winter fishery. I don't know why.
Well, it's a winter fishery out at Derville.
Right.
Okay, and in the summer they come in along the coastal margins. They follow everything else. Everything out at sea works on the basically like you, food, shelter, and sex. Yeah, basically.
You got two of those things, right?
Yeah, in the wrong order.
Yeah.
So when the water warms up over the coastal, shallow, inshore areas, there's a lot more food, a lot more activity, and the fish move in. They also have periods when they spawn, so there's a lot of activity. In winter, things slow down, the cycles slow down, and they go to their winter haunts. Kingfish are very easy to target off Derville and high areas of current, deep water, a lot of food boiled up and put into, sort of one spot. So that's why they're there. Snapper are basically the same thing. Once you know where the snapper winter haunts are, it just comes down to a question of targeting them. People can go out there and they can fish over. You can find them on the sounder, big balls of fish, drift over them, and you can sit there all day over, for example, snapper. You can be over thousands, literally hundreds or thousands of fish. You might get one, might get none, but then again you might get dozens. So you have to be there at the right time and target them when they're on the feed. So
what do you recommend we do during winter to target the snapper? I mean, do we change the technique of fishing?
Yeah, basically it's deep water fishing. So you're fishing vertically rather than horizontally through the water and shallow water with big baits. You want to cut out the big baits, go back to smaller baits because their metabolism has slowed down. So ledger rigs, with the sinker on the bottom with small thumb-sized baits, pieces of squid. Still mix it up. They like a variety, so have a variety of different baits. But other techniques that are working particularly well and worked well last year, things like using the slow jigs, like the bottom ship jigs, the jitterbugs and those sort of things. And they drop down to the bottom. And what they mimic is sort of something like a baby octopus or a small squid or a wounded baitfish. And you flutter those up off the bottom, and sometimes that's enough to incite a bite from the fish. Flasher rigs are still good standard stock fare for fishing in winter. Even the long jigs, people surprisingly, they think forget that the snapper are predators. Well, they're scavengers, but they will take live fish. So a 150-gram long jig jigged up off the bottom will take them. And then really it's just a case of putting the time in and cruising over and over and finding out when that bite time is. And remember that the Maori calendar has something in it, and that is that there are different feeding cycles for fish. So on certain phases of the moon, they'll fish aggressively for a longer period, and there are other days where they feed for a short period.
So typically, snapper and things bite in the early morning and dawn and things like that, isn't it?
That's a rule of thumb where they'll bite during that change of window, that magic light change of window period. First thing in the morning, then again late at night. They'll also feed on two sides of the tide, so they'll generally have a feeding session as the tide's coming in, and it might be for 20 minutes, it might be for 5 minutes. Then you'll find on the back of the tide at roughly the same position and time, they'll feed again.
I guess it's just about being out there and getting amongst it and finding the spots, really. Eh?
Well, that always helps if you have a line in the water.
Yep. All right, well, that's it for the show, mate. I feel 15 minutes smarter.
Well, I feel relieved that you are.
Good stuff. We'll be back next Saturday. Enjoy your fishing. Until then, grab a copy of the fishing paper. Out now.